We had another committee ahead of us, and so we're going to get moving here very quickly. We've got Senator Hawk online. I can see Senator Bowers online. Senator Clays is online. And I think everyone else is here in person. So we'll go ahead and get started. And as the Senate President said yesterday, we can allow those.
So here, Mr. Chairman, it's Senator Corson. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. Senator Corson, I just see is online too. So that I don't miss someone raising their hand in this process, we'll, as Senate President said yesterday, allow those who are online to participate and to vote today because of the weather situation. I also see Senator Warren just joined us, so I think we have pretty much the full committee here. And so those of you watching online, if you would like to join in the discussion, in case I miss your hand raising, which you can do at the bottom of the screen there, just go ahead and speak up and I will acknowledge you if it's in order. So I think what we're going to do is start off today by reopening our, not our hearing, but consider we were working, I believe, House Concurrent Resolution 5023, which at the time Senator Francisco asked for a brief on that resolution and from the Attorney General. So I asked Willie Prescott to come and to give us a quick update on the price gouging situation from the AG's office. Thank you, Willie, for coming.
There's the light. Willie Prescott, Special Assistant to the Attorney General Derek Schmidt. Yeah, the update is that there is an ongoing investigation. Earlier, we had an RFP, put it out for an independent investigation. We have done that and contracted with that. I know it's ongoing, so anytime we have an active investigation, really we're not privy to any information until the investigation is completed. And we have not been notified of that, and we are still aware that it is ongoing. And as with other investigations, it'll take, and when I ask a question, they say it'll take as long as it takes. So I can't tell you when we will see anything on that. I'd stand for questions if there is any.
Any questions, committee? Senator Francisco?
Thank you. I appreciate that because we had simply heard before that an RFP had been issued. So this is progress. That you have a contract in place. And so I guess the only thing I would ask would be, I hope that the legislature and the Attorney General who are mentioned in this resolution also appreciate the actions of the governor in making sure that gas continued to be delivered throughout the state, and that the treasurer has really done quite a bit of work to make sure if the gouging occurred, we have a way to provide some relief until the investigation and any following action is taken.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that because many of the small cities' budgets were just really stressed, and people stepped forward with financing to allow them to continue to operate while we do this investigation. And as we all do, we hope there's something we can do for them.
Mr. Chairman, question?
Yes. I think I've got Senator Hawk and then Senator Olson. It's a little more cumbersome when you've got people online, but go ahead, Senator Hawk.
Yeah, Willie, Mr. Prescott, good to have you. Are there other states that have similar investigations going? And maybe you can't answer this either because of privacy concerns, but does their investigation in any way help ours if there are others, particularly Midwestern states that were hit with Uri?
Since we're working with an independent investigation team, we're really not privy to whether they are also working others or not. I imagine we've had communications, but I'd have to check on that and get back with you.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Senator Olson?
I almost got, my first new question is, who's that Tom Hawk guy on the wall there? But No, my question is, Willie, so when you guys do your investigation, are you going to look at and see if the Wall Street traders might have participated in this? Or are you going to, I mean, where's your investigation going to go? Are you going to go and look at you got your producers, your wellheads, your pipeline distributors, and then your end users? But they might not have been the ones that caused everything to happen. So that's kind of my question.
Well, yeah, and there's probably two trails. One is the actual gas supply, and then the money is, and I know this investigation, there again, it'll lead where it leads. I presume they'll pursue it wherever it takes them.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, committee? I think FERC is still have an open investigation for, I understand. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, and as to anything, it's within our own building. Being I'm on the legislative side, I'm not sure what may be taking place there.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Should someone contact Securities and Exchange and see maybe if, there shouldn't be an investigation there on, the daily trading, or I'm just throwing stuff.
I'll pass that along and forward. They may have already, but if not, I'll pass that to the team.
I would imagine that would be part of the AG's bailiwick there, Senator Francisco.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that I understand from others that the attorney generals in Oklahoma and Texas did start an investigation right after the storm. So those would be two states to contact.
Very good. I'll do that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks for your update, Willie.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to the committee. I don't know if you need an additional reading of this or not. I would certainly have the, yes, Senator Olson.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move, if it's all right, that we pass out HCR 5023 favorable for passage.
Thank you. We've got a motion by Senator Olson and a second by Senator Peterson to pass out House Concurrent Resolution number 5023 favorable for passage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. It passes. Thank you, committee, for that.
I was an aye. I didn't get my button hit.
We'll make sure we've got that. Thank you, Senator Hawk. Senator Francisco?
Mr. Chair, I was just going to say in some other committees, when we've had people on WebEx, the chair has called the names, so it's clear that people have an opportunity to vote and can record their vote. So
You mean individually or?
individually, if we have a list of who's on WebEx,
Okay.
and I don't think it's important for this
Looks like
election, but
Senator,
it may be for our next bill.
gotcha. Looks like Senator Hawk, Senator Hawk, did you have your hand raised?
I did, but you got me, sorry, and I forgot to unraise my hand electronically.
It looks like Senator Warren also has her hand raised.
No, Mr. Thompson, or sorry, excuse me, Senator Thompson, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I believe it is the practice of committee not to record committee votes. So asking those on WebEx to have their name called out would be a recording of the vote. So it would seem to me to be more appropriate that the process would be those who want to raise their hand or don't would do so, or some other mechanism would be my suggestion, rather than having the recorded votes of those online, but the not recorded votes of those in the committee meeting room. Thank you.
I think that's a fair observation. And Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is something maybe we should ask about, but in fact, if someone's in the committee room and there's a recording of this, our committee votes are known.
Yeah, this is a unique situation. This is probably why we didn't allow this normally. But I think since we have this one exception today, and I saw Senator Bowers, did you have a question?
No, just to vote yes.
Okay. Senator Olson?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be uncommon if someone voted no to ask them if they wanted to be recorded no. And if a vote like this next one could go to a divisional vote where someone either has to raise their hand aye or or signify their position, the virtual people. Thank you.
That's how we'll handle it. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on next to Senate Bill 478, which we heard yesterday. Committee, we've got, rather than do an entire bill brief, we do have some amendments coming in. If the committee would like to hear the entire bill, I think we could expedite the process by hearing the amendments first. But if it's the committee's will, we could have the reviser do a quick overview. If there's anyone who would like that, just let me know. Seeing none, I think
I'd like an overview,
Oh,
Mr.
would you,
Chairman.
Tom? Okay, Senator Hawk. All righty, we'll have our reviser, Nick, come back up to the microphone and give us a quick overview of Senate Bill 478. Or actually, you can stay back there, Nick, and do it right there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And one thing we might need to iron out, Mr. Chair, is, okay. If amendments are proposed, we will need to iron out getting the amendments out to the members that are online. And so I think I'll work with Sheila to get those emailed out to the members so that they have them in their inbox and can look at them.
That sounds good. And all you members online, senators online, we will send out those amendments so that you have them and give you a moment to look them over when we do those. So thank you, Nick, for pointing that out. And I'll let you go ahead and do the overview of the original bill.
So committee, this is Senate Bill 478. And again, this would establish state requirements for obstruction lighting systems that are installed on wind turbines. And it's operating in two parts. So subsection A of the bill would require new wind energy conversion facilities that have not yet been constructed or commenced operations to be equipped with a light mitigating technology system that complies with FAA rules and regulations. And under the bill, the developers would be required to submit the proposed type of light mitigating technology system to the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners would have ultimate approval authority for the type of system that is installed. Under subsection B, this deals with existing facilities. So any existing wind energy conversion facility that is in place as of July 1, 2022 would be required to install a light mitigating technology system that, again, complies with FAA rules and regulations. This type of system on an existing facility would be required to be installed on or before July 1 of 2025. If this system is not installed before that timeframe, the bill would provide that the owner or operator would have to discontinue operations of that facility until that light system is installed. And again, similar to the new facilities, prior to installation of light mitigating technology system, the owner or operator would have to submit an application to a county, and the county would have ultimate approval authority of the type of system that would be installed. And Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Committee, any questions? Let me check online here real fast. I don't see any hands raised. Seeing none, are there any amendments? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment.
All righty, we'll have give a moment to get it passed out and sent out via email. Might take a minute or so. So committee online, if you'll watch your emails, I'm trying to watch mine. Okay. I have to give it a minute. The servers must be slow today. It's the snow. Oh, just sent to the ones online. Okay. Does everyone online have them? Let me see. All the senators online have the amendment. I see Senator Hawk give me a thumbs up there, so a big okay. Senator Bowers has it, so Senator Warren, Senator Corson, and Clays. If you have any issues, okay, Senator Clays has his. Senator Warren has hers.
I've got mine, Mr. Chair.
And Senator Corson has his. Okay. Would you like to explain this amendment or let the reviser do so, Senator Francisco?
I'll try to explain the amendment and ask the reviser to correct me as necessary.
Very good.
So you might remember at the end of the discussion yesterday, I did ask for some information on a project timeline, and want to thank Kimberly Swati for getting that to me. So she's reporting that it takes about 5 to 7 years now to work through a wind development project. So with that information, the first change would be to say on and after July 2026. And then the next change is instead of requiring that a system is equipped with light mitigating technology, the requirement would be that notice was filed and application was made to the Federal Aviation Administration that included a request to install a comprehensive light mitigating technology system that complies. So at this point, the Federal Aviation Administration would have control. So if it's a military base, if there's other reasons that they would not approve, then the requirement would not exist. But it also says if the request is approved by the Federal Aviation Administration, such light mitigating technology system shall be installed. I did hear a lot of concerns about the involvement of the county commission and how that could be managed. And so the county commissions now are no longer part of this bill. So that strikes lines 13 to 23. And then there was also concern about whether this requirement would be retroactive. And with this amendment, it would not. So that's striking lines 24 to 34. Again, we refer back to the Board of County Commissioners on page 1, lines 35 and 36, through page 2, line 9, and this also removes all involvement of the County Commission. Lines on page 2, lines 10 through 13 that refer to costs, I did have some discussions and want to make sure that if a entity was asking for a power contract, then they could be responsible for the costs, not necessarily the owner or the developer or the operator. So striking who's responsible for the costs means that if it's an investor-owned utility, it could become, hopefully this means if it's an investor-owned utility, it could become part of the rates. Left the same definition of light mitigating technology system, but finally on page 2, starting on line 20, I was concerned about what turbines this would apply to, and this limits it to an electric generation facility consisting of 20 or more wind turbines. This would be a very expensive technology to install if you just were trying to put up one turbine, and also recognizing the testimony that we heard that wind turbines aren't the only thing that are putting up lights for the FAA. So there could be grain elevators with lights. There could be cell phone cell towers with lights. So this puts it more, hopefully, in perspective. And then also talks about the height, to say that are more than 200 feet in height above ground level. So that's the amendment, and I would stand for any questions.
Very good. Committee, any questions? Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the amendment does improve it. Number one, I believe the retroactive is unconstitutional. The problem I have with the amendment and the bill, there is so many unknowns. As we heard testimony, then we started thinking about cell phone towers. Well, what about grain elevators? I mean, there's so many things that we don't think about that are in our skyline. And all of a sudden, what we're going to do here, we're going to change the normal pattern of what the FAA, I mean, they've got to approve it, but still, what people are flying across the country, what they're normally used to seeing. And I can't support this bill because I feel like we're doing it on the fly. And, this, to me, if we pass this bill out, we risk somewhere down the road someone getting injured. I would be willing to table this bill, write a letter to the president and the speaker, and add anybody's name on it to have an interim committee or some kind of joint task force to where we review this and study it in depth before we put something like this in, and make sure we're doing the lighting for everybody that needs to be included. And, I just don't want to cause risk out there, and then it's someone else's loved one that's flying across the country that hits something and loses their life. At the appropriate time, I'd make a motion to table this bill.
I would say if you were listening to the lighting detection presentation on Monday, that the default for all of these systems is on. The lighting radar only if there's any glitch, any fail, say, or any problem with the system, both of those systems that they talked about on Monday would default to the on position, so that safety is their ultimate concern. And the FAA, being the approval authority, would obviously not approve anything that they felt was unsafe. And I felt like, listening to the presentation that we had on Monday, it was pretty clear that they took all necessary measures. So if there was a failure of the radar system, it defaulted to on, so that any aircraft in the vicinity would see those lights, and they would stay on until the system error was fixed. So hopefully that allays a little bit of concern. I'd seen a hand raised by Senator Warren. Did you have a question or comment, Senator Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Does the FAA currently have to review lighting systems for wind turbines, grain elevators, cell towers? Is that already part of the process for these structures?
Yes, they have to have aviation lighting on them now. All this would do is alter the requirement that new turbines would have the light mitigation system after the date of July 2026. So it's already required by the FAA for safety purposes.
So section, just a moment. So in section 1, the balloon amendment for section 1, notice was filed and application was made to the FAA that included a request to install a comprehensive light mitigating technology system. That's not is that notice an application for a comprehensive light mitigating technology system, is that already part of what is already required for these structures to submit to the FAA? Or is the part with light mitigating technology system, is that part new in this proposed balloon amendment?
It would just, and I'll yield to Senator Peterson because he had his hand raised. I think he may have an answer, but this just includes the request to install the comprehensive light mitigation system. So it would be an additional requirement on top of the aviation lighting that's already required. And I think Senator Peterson might be able to add something to the conversation here.
Senator Warren, they have to get file an application for each tower, each light for approval to make sure it meets the requirements, and that includes a lot of different things, the size, the degree, the brightness, and everything. The new part in this is that we were going to ask them to install the light mitigating technology after July 2026. That is new. They would not have to ask that right now. They would just have to ask for the approval and the lighting requirements for each tower.
Thank you for clarifying that. And if I could ask a question of the carrier of the amendment.
Very good. Go ahead.
Thank you. Were there interested parties that helped draft this amendment in its entirety that is proposed before us today? And if there are, who are there? Who are they?
I actually drafted this pretty much on my own, but shared it with some interested parties because I certainly shared it with the chair, talked to the reviser, talked to many opponents of the bill because I had a couple of areas that I had left blank, like what is a good year to say, and as you heard, I had asked for that information on a timeline to help figure out what a good year would be. The chair helped me with the height of how tall the towers should be. I was the one that thought, I don't want to install or require this kind of a system. It's an expensive system for a single turbine. So I did a little asking around and ended up with the number that I had started with, which was 20. I hope the reviser will agree with some of, but so this is pretty much what I came up with after listening to individuals who were very interested in having something happen so that lights wouldn't be on unnecessarily, and then also trying to respond some to the opponent testimony.
And I might add, Senator Warren, that after the hearing yesterday, and while the Senate was in caucus, I did meet with both the opponents and the proponents, listen to their concerns. I know the opponents had a lot of concerns about the timeline, had a lot of concerns about, who was going to make the decision and about these things, but also with respect to the proponents of the bill that they had some valid points, and these people were here asking for some help. And so the FAA, turning it over to them, they already have to make this decision anyhow. And so it made more sense to have them approve. And again, with regard to what Senator Francisco had mentioned, I know the military has some issues with this and some of the low-flying training routes that they have. And so the FAA would consider all of those in their approval process. So there may be some turbines that would not be approved because of their location or siting near a military base, and so we're trying to respect those concerns as well. Does that answer that, Senator Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Francisco. Appreciate that clarification. Appreciate that you shared with the committee and those in the committee meeting room and following along online the efforts that you have done to talk with interested parties and those who had testified and to try to find some resolution.
Well,
And thank you
I
for.
will say,
And Senator Francisco, yeah, I'm sorry.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So I will say that, I came out of our hearing yesterday wanting to figure out if I could find a solution and worked some of this on the floor. And I think the chair can testify that I shared this outline with him before we adjourned last night. And then I did just share that I had an amendment with the vice chair right after the pro forma session this morning.
Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, what's the cost of the current lighting systems that's out? We heard the other day in testimony, it's like $1.2 million to $1.5 million. What's the cost for a system that goes up today?
That is when they talked about the light detection systems on Monday, they said maximum was about 1.5, although it kind of depends on the pattern of the industrial complex. In Kansas, they felt like with the flat terrain, generally one radar could do the trick. In some instances, it might take a couple.
Yeah, now I understand that's on the new system. I'm saying today, with what's up on the towers currently, what's it cost for a regular system today?
You mean with the current lighting?
Current deal. The ones that's out there today, what did it cost to average?
Add just the current lighting that exists
lighting.
without the mitigating technology.
I never heard that number.
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I don't know if,
Here's where I'm trying to go with this, Mr. Chairman. I'm thinking there's a big difference between western Kansas and Johnson County. And if you get out in western Kansas, money doesn't grow on trees. And if it's a cost $1 million more to do this, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, there's probably some counties that would rather have some revenue because somebody's going to pay for that. Somehow it's going to be built in the system. So that's where I kind of like that local issue of letting them work through that kind of stuff. So that's just my opinion on that.
I would think, obviously the cost of compliance for the current systems with the FAA is built into the cost of the entire turbines. Each of these turbines now, and it depends on the output, their nameplate capacity, I think we're running $4 to $5 million per turbine now on the bigger ones, and the nameplate capacity gets larger. So, I don't know what the individual breakdown of the individual lighting would cost, but this would just add the light mitigation. So we're not, and from what I understand and what they said Monday in the presentation, that the new turbines are pretty much built to be able to accommodate this, or maybe, and knowing out in time on this particular amendment that, they've got a number of years here to make that compliance. The developers will factor that into the cost of the system. Senator Olson.
Thank you. Well, another thing, the amendment starts at 20. So from 1 to 19, we're going to have one version, the old version, I guess, of lighting. So when we get a site of 20, we're going to go to the new version. Right there. Now, we've just talked about what it costs. We haven't really heard what it's going to cost. I've seen numbers where if we retrofit the existing, it's going to be over 60 million. I don't know exactly, but someone's going to pay that. Now, all we're doing is we're trying to over-regulate something that the state's already approved, FAA's already approved. I mean, what kind of message are we sending the wind industry here? The kind of message we're sending is move on to Oklahoma, move on somewhere else. That's what we're doing. And that's what's going to happen. We're going to become a net, we're going to have to export power into the state if we keep after what we're doing here and on some of these other bills.
Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sitting here thinking about the light mitigating technology, as your definition. Technically, what we have today is doing that, blinks off and on, with what goes on. So the definition of what in 2026, and who knows what technology will do between now and then, we might have something totally different at that time. So it's just a thought for conversation.
Senator Francisco?
I'll try to respond to both of those. One, this is simply saying that we have some kind of light mitigating technology. And that means that the lights aren't on all the time that the windmills are standing and it's dark. So so it just says there's going to be a period of time, and I think we heard in one case, they looked at 97% of the time, there wasn't traffic or snow geese or aircraft flying through that, and so there wasn't a need to have those lights on. So this just provides some, I think, respite for those people who see these. And the question of 20 was to say there is some cost to putting in this system. And so you don't want to ask for that extra cost if there isn't a reasonably sized set of turbines. I would say that this would not go into effect until 2026. But if we pass it, we are putting essentially the wind developers on notice that there's a deadline and we have time to make changes. The other concern I have is that if we have spent time in this committee hearing a lot of concerns from residents and particularly landowners who weren't part of that, that they may go to their county commission and say, we just want to opt out. We don't want to have to do this. I think that sends a different message to wind developers to say, we don't want you in Kansas. So that's a balance, I think, between wanting to make sure that we have a system that Kansans are comfortable with.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Senator Clues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo a little bit about what Senator Olson touched on, because as I've sit here and new to this committee, obviously, and trying to be sensitive to the proponents and looking at the opponents as well. A couple of things to note. Sometimes it just seems like these things haven't happened overnight and not necessarily going to go away overnight on both sides. And we try to fix things, and we have an opportunity to get this right. And that's what I look for, and ultimately what's best for the people of Kansas and our constituents. And I don't live in an area where these turbines are. I grew up in an area that they're very active in, Senator Bauer's area in Concordia, Miltonville. And so I would be open to something like to look at this a little bit more versus just trying to rush in and to fix this thing. I think there are a lot of questions. I know I still have questions, and and I got to vote on this, and I'm just getting familiar to a lot of this, but we got a lot of issues day by day that this legislation looks at, and from voting rights and gun issues, and so many different things come our way, and we need to just make sure we're getting things right, because I think at the end of the day, someone is paying for it. And it may not be out of our pockets up front, but it could land up coming out of our pockets. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more on Senator Olson's thoughts concerning maybe a time period.
Is that all right? Thank you. What I would like to do is I'd like to put a letter together to both the speaker and the president. I'd probably work with the industry a little bit. I would want to set some targets. I would want to know, I'd want to get the FAA in here and tell us what they would agree to, what they wouldn't. I would also want to know more about the financial side of what it's going to cost to do this. I would probably shape a bill to where you can't go retroactive. I don't think the courts would allow it. I'm almost certain, because there was a lawyer I worked with when we repealed the RPS, and I think he'd say you'd have to set a date in the future, and they could voluntarily change. You could create incentives, but I think you'd look at the financial aspect and, make sure there's no risk, and then come out with a plan to, land this. It wouldn't happen overnight, but you would step into it. So you'd set the date out certain into the future years. You've already got 26. You've got some time to sit down and see what the cost is going to be, to really look at the technologies and to get the FAA in here. And we could all get on the same page. I think it would be good if the industry was involved in it. Trust me, I've chaired many committees and worked on many big issues. The industry is always willing to work with you, but you can't just shove something right down their throat. These wind producers have 20-year contracts, and they've got commitments. They built in their costs. They've planned for the last, the 20 years of these wind projects, and they're not planning for this disruption because they've already planned for it once. So they're not planning for this cost. And when you disrupt that, you could cost the ratepayers, them, jeopardize their whole business. I don't know any business that likes to have something changed in the middle. We've been allowing them for 20 years plus to do it this way. Now we want to change the game. And yeah, we did hear a few people in here, but the one guy that come by my office that I talked to lived like 17 or 19 miles away from the wind project. And so when I'm driving through western Kansas, I can see the lights 10, 20 miles down the road, the towns, the feedlots. But I want to get this right. I don't want someone flying a plane across the country, crash into something, and someone gets killed. And I also don't want undue costs put onto my ratepayers because I got 20 people in the state upset with how the lighting system we've approved 20 years ago to be all right.
Senator Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know why you couldn't do both, particularly with the 2026 timeframe. That probably gives you about a year before on these new projects would be coming online, would have the power purchase agreements starting to be worked on and signed. This is fairly early in this. I think you could pass this, and it's great motivation to make sure that people get together. This wind industry will work with you all day long. They will come out, they will help. If we get people together and sit down, it can happen. We had issues with the KCC before. We had to take the whole weight limits off of some commercial driving and moving, but it took 2 meetings after that, and we came up with a great solution, and things went forward. So I think if you pass this bill, we still need to have the request made to the president to have someone to look at it and review it. This is just like a motivating factor. And yes, there is an increased cost. I think we heard it, some of these systems cost $1.5 million. We need to look at that, but I don't see any problem with having this pushed out there for a little motivation. We can come back next year and repeal it if we had to, but I do think that it may have some merit.
Thanks, Senator Peterson. Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing that crosses my mind as we're sitting here contemplating this, FAA is involved, the county's involved, now the state gets involved. I was around a deal last summer that's talking about there's 3,300,000 words in our regulations. And somebody coming in here wanting to do business, having to jump through 3 layers of business. I still feel like that this is a county issue, that the county's associations could be working on this and have some pilot things. Just my opinion. Thank you.
And the counties, with this amendment, the counties are not involved. It's strictly the FAA. The other issue with the counties, and we've heard this in a number of other bills, you've got the argument between the zoned and the unzoned counties. The counties say they don't want to be zoned. I have a feeling we could analyze this thing to death. That's the analysis by paralysis of what I see coming down here. And I agree with my vice chair that this is a motivating factor. It's more than just 20 people across the state complaining. We had a number of people who testified. We had the Kansas Livestock Association, who represents a lot of people out in the rural parts of Kansas. We saw the video of people who have to actually live surrounded by these. And the question should be, what are we telling them? That we just ignore them? And so I believe that, this, we've got to consider that. Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the Federal Aviation Administration, they're involved no matter what. They have the authority, and you can't build turbines without making application through them. So with the way this is written, there's nothing that changes except that the application includes light mitigating technology if you have 20 turbines or more. And then the Federal Aviation Administration does their work to look at each of the turbines and says which ones need to be lighted. So I don't know that we would negotiate with them. I think they have the final say on how lighting works on turbines.
Senator Hawk, I believe, has a question. Senator?
Thank you. Just weighing in relative to the amendment, I would rather have an interim or a task force that would look at this bill as amended. I think it certainly improves the bill with the amendment Senator Francisco has, but I'd rather give a task force or an interim committee a chance to look at this issue, hear some of what we heard, get the parties together as part of that task force, and actually not run the risk of not doing it right or making a mistake or even discouraging what might be a good wind economic development project that would be put off and not considered because we're not sure how this is really going to pan out for them in the future. I could better see this bill as amended or with this amendment a year from now when we're in session after we have the benefit of what the task force and or the interim committee does to deal with this issue. There may be several things that have been mentioned here today that would impact that. I don't know if 20 is the right number. Certainly, I suppose that could be amended if we got down the road, but I think we would have fewer unintentional consequences if we didn't pass this and tabled it, but made a real commitment to have an interim or a task force. So that's my thinking after listening to people today.
Senator Clues?
One last comment, and I do appreciate Senator Francisco's work on this amendment, but I do like this idea of a task force, Senator just mentioned, and that's all I had to say.
Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if those people who are saying let's have a task force would be willing to agree that the task force wouldn't mean that we delay implementation for yet another year. So I think one of my concerns is I don't want to have a task force and say, we're going to start this in 2027. So I would hope that there's some agreement from the committee that 2026 is a reasonable last date to look at, if we can come up with language that everyone can agree with.
And I would certainly say that this is not the last word on this bill, but that this, as the vice chair brought up, does give all parties a motivation to continue to look at this. I think it's set out far enough in the distance that it doesn't immediately place an overburden on the wind companies. So that's just my final comment on that. And Senator Olson, one final comment?
Sure. I mean, we could carry this bill over till next week, and I'm sure a group of people could put together a task force, and we put it in the statute that we're going to have a task force that's going to report back with legislation on this. I mean, I think it would be smart of us. We don't know the cost. I heard the oldest project in the state to retrofit would be $2.3 million. Someone's going to have to pay that. We need to know what the cost is, what the plan is. And, I don't want to send a message that I don't want wind in the state. And also, I think Senator Hawk made a very valuable point. Why is it from 1 to 19, they're not going to have to do this retrofit? We don't know if that's the right number, if it should be 10 or it should be 5. We need to learn more about the cost. And so, I mean, the amendment makes it better, takes away the retroactive, but I really would like to see a task force. I mean, I think, to me, it makes more sense.
Senator Francisco, would you like to move your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would just say again, because there is no requirement for existing facilities to have to do any work, the cost of retrofitting is not a consideration at this point. This is moving forward. We've heard that the new wind operations tend to be connected by fiber already in terms of the lighting. I think it's a good date. I think it's a good response to say we're looking for a balance. I move my amendment.
Senator Francisco moves the amendment. Do I have a second? Looking online to see if there's a second.
Second it, Senator Clays.
Senator Clay seconds the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 And all those, and I couldn't tell with everybody, as all those opposed, no?
No.
I believe the ayes have it. Division has been called. How should we do this, Mr. Advisor, on division? Just have each one online answer, raise their hand?
It's up to you, Mr. Chair. We could do it that way, or we could, getting close to a roll call if we read through the names, but.
Yeah, I don't. I would say all those who are in favor in the room, raise their hand. And all those online, if you could either raise your hand or turn your video on so I could see. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All okay. And all those online or in the room who are opposed, raise your hand. 3, 4, 5. So it's 5-5. The chair has the tie-breaking vote, and I vote aye. So this passes. We are back on the amended bill now. I do have an amendment, and we'll give the reviser a chance to pass it out.
Is there ever a time that a table is in order? And if not, I would like to get a ruling from the head reviser if we're not working under Robert's Rules of Order and we can't table bills.
On this particular bill, my ruling would be that we do not table, we continue the discussion.
I would like to get a ruling from the head reviser, Gordon Self, on this, that we're not able to table bills. This would be the first committee in my 18 years that you are not able to table bills or make that motion. I believe we're working under Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, we have, yes.
Chair, I believe we're working under the procedural rules that were passed out of the committee,
Right.
which says a motion to table a bill shall be in order at any time a bill is taken up by the chairperson for discussion. The motion is non-debatable and requires a majority vote of members present to pass. But it also says the chairperson may refuse to accept a motion to table a bill or move a bill out of committee.
That is correct.
And so does that mean I never have the opportunity to make a motion to table on this bill?
You can make the motion, but I don't have to accept it as chairman.
So at any time through working the bill, you will not accept a table motion?
That was in the rules at the beginning of the committee, yes. Senator Peterson?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I thought the table rule applied that you couldn't table it until all the amendments were considered. Then at the end of that, there would be an opportunity for a motion to table the bill to be made. I may have read that wrong, but that was my understanding.
Let me go to the rules here. And again, this was in the procedural rules as that we handed out at the beginning of the session. A motion to table bill shall be in order anytime a bill is taken up by the chairperson for discussion. The motion to table a bill is non-debatable and requires a majority vote of members present to pass. A successful motion to table a bill shall lay the bill over for a minimum of 1 day. The chairman may refuse to accept a motion to table a bill or move a bill out of committee. Those are the procedural rules as published on the website and posted, and those are the rules we've been operating under.
It sound like they're conflicting because at one point it says I can make the motion to table, but then I have to wait for you to approve. I mean, I have to agree with at least Senator Peterson's version. Why would you even put say a motion to table is in order unless, I don't know.
That was in the rules.
I've got challenges with that rule, and I believe somewhere along the line, I'm going to attempt to make the motion to table, and I want to get a lawyer or two's opinion.
Well, we can ask the reviser to weigh in on the rules, but they've been in existence, so. I don't know, Mr.
Because to me, it sounds like I can make a motion to table, but then he's not allowing me to make that motion to table at any time. Senator Peterson's right, because I've tried this a couple times. He's denied it.
By the way, Senator Olson, I adopted these rules based on rules that were provided to me by you.
I've never allowed someone not to make the motion.
Well, that's where they came from. We are going to move on. Next, we're going to have the next amendment I've got, and the reviser will pass those out.
They should be passed out.
Okay, should be. Are they all passed down? Oh, there it is. Okay. Everyone online have the amendment? Looks like we're good. Senator Hawk, very good. Senator Corson, Senator Warren, and is Senator Clay still there? Can't see. Okay. All righty. And Mr. Advisor, I'll have you go ahead and explain this amendment.
Okay, committee. What this amendment would do is it would add in a new subsection B that has previously been stricken. And what this new subsection B would do is it would apply to systems that are constructed or commencing operations in the state prior to July 1 of 2026. So it is working in tandem with the amendment that was just adopted by the committee. So for these facilities that are constructed and have commenced operations prior to that date, there must be a notice filed and an application to the Federal Aviation Administration to request the installation and use of a comprehensive light mitigating technology system that complies with FAA rules and regulations. The notice and request for the light mitigating technology system must be made for each wind energy conversion system that meets these requirements in the state. And then if the request is approved by the Federal Aviation Administration, the light mitigating technology system would be required to be installed on or before July 1 of 2027.
Thank you. Any questions, committee? Senator Peterson.
Mr. Chair, well, I appreciate the fact that this is a way to try and get to retroactive. I know there's a lot of purchase power agreements out there that are long-term agreements, and this could affect this is putting an undue burden of regulation on some of those folks that have installed these things and did it right at the time that they put it in. And unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to be opposing this amendment.
Any other? Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is changing what already exists is probably the most difficult part of this discussion. I know that is what many residents would like to see, but it's something that needs a lot of thought. We might be able to consider something that talks about what happens when you're repowering a facility, but I cannot go along with having something that makes all the systems. And I think I also am concerned that it's prior to July 1st, 2026, because I think that really says anything that's built between now and then, even if you don't start it till July 1st, all of a sudden, you're going to have to meet this timeline of 2027. So it not only affects wind farms that are already in existence, it will affect, I think negatively, those ones that are under construction. So I also have trouble supporting this.
With that, I think I'll withdraw the amendment, and we are back on the bill. Committee? What is the will of the committee on this?
I'll make a motion to
Discussion on the motion to table. Is there a second? Second from Senator Clues. Discussion?
I think we've spent a good bit of time in the committee, and I think we've come up with one small way to address some future construction. I would hope that we would have a chance to at least share that with the full Senate, if not do it that in time to get it across to the House.
Senator Corson?
I'm going to support this motion to table. I don't think that we're ready to move forward with this. I think that the amendment that got on, I think was sort of presented as maybe a compromise when I don't think it was. I mean, we haven't really heard from any of the opponents about whether that amendment really addresses their concerns, whether it's workable, whether it's practicable, whether it's cost effective, whether it's affordable. So I mean, I think that we I don't know that we really solved any problems by putting that amendment on. I don't disagree that it does make a bad bill better and an unworkable bill a little more workable, but without hearing from any of the opponents on whether they think that this amendment makes it any more workable, I think we do need to get folks together in a room, as Senator Olson and Senator Hawk have discussed, and really come forward with something that we can all get behind and move forward. So I would support this motion to table.
All righty. Any other discussion? Senator Clues.
I would just echo all that. I feel like there's still more that needs to be done. So I would say we move forward on tabling it.
Okay, the motion, yes, Senator Peterson.
Question on the table. If this bill is tabled, does the chair reserve the right to pull it off the table, or what's the mechanism for that if we would want to put a task force in it?
I believe you can, we can pull it off after one day and pull it off the table after one day is in the rules.
Normally, it takes a majority of the committee.
To pull it off the table. That's correct.
Thank you.
I lost track of who seconded the motion to table. Senator Clues. So a motion to table by Senator Olson, seconded by Senator Clues. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And okay, all those opposed, nay?
Nay.
I couldn't tell from online who voted which way, except for a couple of them, I think. It appears the ayes have it. The bill is tabled. And with that committee, we are done with our work today. Thank you for the discussion. We appreciate that very much, and we are adjourned.